There you go, Sean. Go ahead, Sean. This is feedback from the GRAMA hearing, Vineyard City LRS GRAMA.
Yeah, it was very interesting. We sat there for several hours with some of the agenda items before us. So we kind of got to read on the committee members, kind of what their process is, all that. So that was interesting, aside from just our part of it. But in that meeting, we were basically allowed 25 minutes plus whatever they asked us questions on. That's a lot. It's a little bit of time for the amount of information that should come across and be sent across on that. So hopefully, at least some of the key points were touched on there. So, we were able to bring up the key issues that we saw with this entire GRAMA, coming from how it was even conducted, which they contradicted themselves a couple of times. We weren't able to more or less call them out on that all the time, although we did a couple times. We were able to bring to light the amount of documents that we receive versus the amount of documents that they have classified. And that's just the amount of known documents that are out there. That's not even the amount of documents that they had turned over or didn't turn over. That's just now we have a known document count for more or less. We were able to discuss with them kind of all the wrongdoings that we saw and continued to see with the process of approving this letter, or letters plural. And anyway, able to get the word out there a little bit and hear from the city on their side of things, which wasn't a lot, which wasn't much at all. I felt like it was good. It was would we have liked them to take all four of those documents, those record sets, and rule in our favor? Absolutely. I don't think that them not doing that on all the documents hurt or helped for the most part, because it shows that the documents exist. It shows that the communication was there. It shows a lot. So we come out of it. I came out of it frustrated and happy at the same time. I guess if I can have those all those emotions at the same time. But anyway, happy with what we put forward and excited to continue on with this because it doesn't end today.
If I could speak up.
I'll go. Let me go first, Peggy. And then
okay, sure.
I did not know that Vineyard City would be arguing on behalf of having no meeting minutes, no approvals, no council member emails, and that we had gotten the full docket of letters because there's no record. So to have them, and I want to make sure this isn't Pam Spencer or the clerk's problem. I mean, if that literally is the extent of the record, this falls on Julie, on the council for there has been a letter drafted. So that was very shocking. For them not to deny that this was wrong when they had the opportunity to say was mind-boggling. I was like, and at one point, if you guys saw in the hearing where they said, well, is this a grant or a loan? I was like, you're asking Jake Holdaway to tell you this? Like, this is what we're here for today. So I think that was just kind of a, and some of the comments of, your city council has to ask these questions, or, like it was just kind of, it was really revealing on that part. The other thing that is very scary was that, okay, now we know that Vineyard is sitting on these classified. I don't disagree that if Julie is having these conversations with the city manager, and they are discussing the contract, or I mean, they're calling it a contract with the lake, and that this is classified. That was a big win to say that it now exists. So I mean, before today, we had no clue that existed. So I'm shocked so that was kind of my thing, is I just never expected Vineyard to come forth and say, we have everything. The other thing that was probably caught me off guard was maybe the personal coming after me or my testimony personally. Just want to make sure if anyone wants to talk to Chris Judd, previous city council member, if anybody wants to talk to Nate Riley, they were not involved, never been involved, didn't know, wasn't in a meeting minutes. They will testify to that too. I was also Jake McCarg, going to lunch with him and saying I was involved in the loan, having him read the text messages. Obviously, that's a sad day that those are still classified as attorney-client privilege. I guess that's legal, but where do you go from here? I mean, that's kind of when we came home, was like, in the ride home, it was like, I don't know. This is like the scariest thing in the world, that you go, we recognize that the mayor has attorney-client privilege and that she can deem that on there. And we don't know if it's a grant or a loan, and she can stay quiet as long as she wants. And, and what we learned through the GRAMA was, all Pam Spencer can say, if Julie turned it over, and if they searched it and it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist, then it's not Pam's fault, but it just tells you a complete lack of, there's no government within the city of Vineyard, so that's extremely scary. So, anyway, I'll let you go, Peggy, on some thoughts of kind of what you thought.
I would say that getting the information out to the press that you got out today, Sean, was a win, a huge win, because it's important that this gets widespread publicity, and hopefully we will see that from the press. I do think that the committee, when they came back, and one gentleman in particular said, it's odd that the citizens had to come and bring the existence of documents to the city, that they knew that these existed. And it goes to the whole, how is Vineyard protecting their records? What's the record retention policy?
Right, to have them go from, this record doesn't exist, to Jake found the record and now it's changed as a classification, attorney-client privilege, and for them to verify that it is a record and it's an authentic record, but we can't have it. That was a big win.
Oh, absolutely. And also just the publicity, the getting the facts of this case out to the public, because we have 2 lake restoration solutions applications for EPA funding, under the WIFIA loan program, one in 2020, one in 2021, where Vineyard is the sponsor. Vineyard is the only lakeshore sponsor with a $5 million loan guarantee. Is it 1 or is it 2? Who knows? But now those documents are out in the public realm. We have been trying to do this for months. And
I also thought the big win was, we don't have jurisdiction. Now, we don't know why there's no documents.
That's what I was just going to bring up, the fact that, and that kind of ended that way, Jake, with them stating that it's pretty clear, we know that there are documents outside of this that should have been included in the GRAMA, and them stating that they don't have jurisdiction over a lot of these other issues, and stating, well, you probably should move on to Attorney General, Auditor, one other source that I can't remember. Sorry, Jake.
The Auditor General and the Attorney General's office, and I would say the Political Subdivisions Ethics Commission.
yeah, all of that was a huge win. Them coming out and saying that, like, we may not be the right forum for you. This may be above our scope, but we see something here. You should do this.
Yeah.
Right. And I can see going back with a very restricted GRAMA request. And I've talked with Jake and Sean about it, and it's information based on what we've got out of the governor's office. We know there were discussions happening in, you know, June, May, July 2021. And I think that's worth pursuing. I was very shocked by Attorney Blakesley's comments about Jake and the meeting with Jake McHarg. And I think that's worth following up through a different channel, and we'll do that.
And I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Oh, yeah, but Jake, that was improper on his part. That
Right.
goes to his attorney ethics. And
Right.
I think that should be questioned and brought to the forefront.
For the citizens in Vineyard, though, I wanted to just answer that. You know, when somebody approaches you with an unethical thing, and you read it, and you don't know GRAMA law, you engage somebody that knows GRAMA law. I happen to know somebody that works at the state. He, because of his official capacity, asked to attend it in his unofficial capacity, and that his name be not brought into it. And I asked him to attend the meeting. Jake McHarg knows who that person is. And when we started the meeting, he said, "Hey, I'm not working in my official capacity." And we had a conversation on Zoom, which is totally true. And he said, "You really need to put forward these loan documents and these loan conversations. These need to be turned over." You know, and he again reiterated this was not in his official capacity, and he would want to be his name protected. And so when Vineyard City Mayor or Attorney asked him who he was, Jake McHarg did not pass on his name, and neither did I, because of his official capacity working for the state. So yeah, that looks kind of weird, but okay, let's talk about me. I have no background in GRAMA. I don't know GRAMA law. Why would I go schedule a meeting with Jake McHarg and not have anybody that's a professional there to advise and say, "Hey, you're holding on to things that should be." Why would I do that, right? You want to have.
But what's wrong? What was wrong? What Blakesley should not have brought that up in this committee without having had a discussion with you in private under confidentiality to learn the facts.
Well, I sent him an email after I said, "Hey, I am not sharing this. Like, if you want to know, Jake McHarg knows and I know, and he's obviously approaching you with documents. Why are you mad that he was advised to do the right thing? Like, you're the Vineyard City attorney and somebody is turning over documents that you didn't turn over correctly. Now, we understand they're now classified because they're under attorney-client privilege, but it shows, I mean, for Vineyard City residents that are listening in, you all know for the past 10 months that our mayor has not confirmed the acceptance or the existence of a $600 million loan before the EPA, and that she is involved in this loan. And so just getting documents to prove that it is, and I think that was the biggest win tonight, was you're not arguing that we are a loan before the EPA at this point. You're not even pausing to say, no, we're a grant. That, you know, the same thing that the mayor's been pushing the last 10 months, that this is a grant. So, hey, we do have a question. And for those that are coming in late, we've had quite a few questions that have come in. Please write down. We had some audio issues, so we just muted everyone except for the panelists. And we were just going to unmute those when they have questions. So Tristy, if it's okay, I'm going to unmute you right now and you can ask your question. Tristy, are you there? Let me go.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what question did you have? Vineyard City
Yeah.
President?
Yeah, just commenting on the conversation before. You said you thought it was a win that we got that there's more information out there, but they also said Julie's email was Google and private Google, which she probably went through and deleted it all. Why do we think we're going to get more?
Well, that's, so we know there's a
Maybe
lot.
this isn't the right question. I don't know.
Well,
That is the right question.
it is the right question, right? Like she uses a private email that's not in an enterprise that has the ability to, and they asked her that, like, are you using something that keeps all of these records for, a public record? No, they're not.
But did you hear how they said it today, though? They said there's a new records retention policy, but they didn't say she was on a different type of Gmail yet. I mean, they're not addressing this stuff.
Right, they have now, as of a month ago, put in a records policy that was not in existence, and that she could, and that's why we're not accusing Pam. Pam
Right.
went and said, hey, there's no conversations, and that's why I call it the immaculate letter of Julie Fulmer, which is, okay, so you have no text messages or conversations with any of these people, and the only thing you're gonna turn over is the finished product. How did we get here, Julie?
And the search of that is concerning. And I think the committee agreed it was concerning. They held off a little bit. The search of both her cell phone and her Gmail is still worrisome because on one hand, you have the city in writing stating that, no, we did not search the term WIFIA. And we did not search her phone for the term WIFIA. On the other hand, you had Pam today under oath say, yes, we searched the phone. Yes, we searched WIFIA on the phone. If they would have done that, that would have delivered these text messages and other documents on the initial GRAMA. They've contradicted themselves and perjured themselves today under oath about the search terms themselves, but we weren't able to push that. We questioned it a few times, but we were not able to push that. But that's still a key thing. I mean, past that point now.
That was one of my favorite parts, was when they started to attack, because for those that weren't following, in the initial GRAMA request, they did not produce Jake McHarg's text messages back and forth proving the loan. So when I went back to Jake, I said, hey, those were not included. He emailed them in shortly after, and then he emailed them into the city to say, hey guys, I submitted these to you to put into the GRAMA. Like, why weren't they there, right? They were arguing that, and at one point I stopped and I said, I think it's really like ridiculous. Like, yes, Jake McHarg is a past city employee. The current mayor has a version of this text message in her text message. She's not hard to track down. There are 2 copies. When I send my dad a text, my dad has a copy and I have a copy. And we asked that, why didn't the mayor turn that over, or at least identify it? I think the other big win, though, that we had was, my mind, there's a lot that went into that. David Leray, I'll unmute you for your comment and then ask it as well. David?
You got me? You hear me?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think Jamie Blakesley is saying that in your meeting with Jake McHarg, that you introduced your friend as a member of the State Records Review Board, as opposed to just someone who had a job in that office or nearby.
Right.
And that's the difference. And he keeps going back to that. And
Yeah.
I don't know how we can clarify it to him in a way that he'll accept it.
So in a system, the way to set up the state records, all I could do is email him and say, hey, Jake, the 3 people that were in that conversation, Jake McHarg, me, and that employee, all came away with the exact same recollection. In fact, I called Jake McHarg right after and I said, hey, do you know the Vineyard City Mayor is making this attorney? And he laughed at me. And I said, okay, well, let me just send the letter. That was 2 months ago, for the city mayor to go in today and make the same claim to kind of influence it. But I don't think that
Yeah,
didn't
city
have any
attorney, yeah.
bearing-
City attorney, yeah.
that didn't have any bearing on it, though. Like, we didn't get the documents because they were attorney-client privilege. Like, they conceded that, yeah, Jake was able to bring these in, but at the end of the day, we're still gonna deem these as classified. But that's what really but that's what the Vineyard citizens need to know at this point. The only people that can support you right now is your Vineyard City Council getting together and voting to have Julie make these documents public. And they're not. Or having Julie, you're sitting on these conversations. And then the second thing that came out that we need to talk about, I think it was the third point that we put out. We did not know when we did the GRAMA that Julie was involved in any type of legislation before the lake for LRS or whatever. And we're not saying this was LRS. We don't know. But we do know that it was a legislative bill that some person sponsoring a bill came in and that because it's a legislative bill, we don't get a copy. We did not know that Julie was involved in LRS or lake bills retaining to this letter. Julie always claimed that she was not part of LRS and as sitting on the lake authority right now. Yeah, because that legislator is claiming that Julie was that protection, and that's what was very interesting. Somebody at the city.
Let me interrupt here.
Go ahead.
We know from another GRAMA request that Brady Brammer selected Julie as the representative from the Utah Lake Commission during the process when they were developing the legislation for the Utah Lake Authority. So those documents probably relate to that.
Yeah. But we didn't, but I still find it interesting in terms of transparency that before just putting these out, who cares about a bill from the past legislature, right? Hey, we put up a bill, it passed, whether it didn't pass, finding out who that legislator is, number one. But then it's so bad that we have to redact this and we go to them to say, hey, can we protect this? Julie sits on the Lake Authority Board right now. LRS has that. How do we know that she's not involved in that? Right? Just be transparent about it, right? About like what.
Well, let's back and forth because we got the documents that said that Brady Brammer chose her as the representative from the Utah Lake Commission. So why didn't we get that from Vineyard? It just again shows the absence of Vineyard's response to your request for documents.
And I brought that up a few times and they were unwilling to rule on or even have further discussion about. I think they all understand that the absence of documentation in this case is pretty overwhelming.
I appreciate it.
I agree, Sean. And one of the gentlemen that was on the committee, and I don't remember his name, brought that point up before they ruled on the 4 categories of documents.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments or didn't understand a ruling? We're more than happy to unmute you, the whole group, and let you kind of express what you're thinking. Path forward, there's a lot. You know, obviously, I have a lot of experience in city and county government. You'd wish that we would get our house in order, meaning the Council of Vineyard has the ability to ask these difficult questions of their friend and say, hey, is this the type of government we want? Us as citizens can continually ask, why are there contracts that are protected or contract conversations and drafts of contracts between these entities and we know nothing about it and there's no meeting minutes? Don't attack Pam, the recorder or anything. I mean, this is at the leadership. However, if we can't get our house in order, which for the past 6 months our council has not, it does. I mean, they kept saying this would be the Attorney General. Why is there not a basic, you know, documentation of meeting minutes, approvals, conversations like that. So anybody else, any comments on that?
Yeah, Jake, this is Doug Drury, Llama 527. I listened to all of it today, except I had to run an errand right during the Vineyard portion of it, got in on the last. But one of the things I noticed with that committee, I tell you what, I found a lot of, what do you want to say, unqualified or people that didn't know what the dickens they were doing sitting on that committee. So for us to get anything out of that committee in our favor, really surprised me, because I've looked up kind of the past history on a lot of those that were there, and it's there wasn't very much qualifications on that committee that really knew anything about GRAMA or records keeping. It seemed to me like it was very lacking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing with that.
Sean, I can speak to that a little bit. Okay, you've got a $6 billion project before you, and they're given 20 minutes is
Yeah.
a fantastic job of like, where do I go with, where do I start with the lack of documents, you know? That's the game that we're played with the state records. But it'll be interesting to see how Vineyard plays this. We don't have any documents. The mayor does, only she knows. And it's attorney-client privilege. I don't know how you have that stance. Let anyone else want to comment on that? And I'll then move in Christy Lee and then David.
Yeah, I was just going to say on that comment, it seemed like that group was just basically saying that none of the rest of that was in their jurisdiction. They could only rule on whether the contents were applicable or not. And they were hinting to you the entire time, because I could hear their hints of, we're not the right jurisdiction, but don't stop, right? They
Yeah.
sounded like they were like, you need to go to the attorney general, you need to go to, it just sounded like it wasn't the right jurisdiction for that part of the complaint.
No.
And they weren't willing, they're not willing to make a judgment on something that's not in their jurisdiction.
It was the right step to
Yes.
the right place, because I do think this needed to happen. I mean, first of all, we got a ton of feedback. We got a lot of information. We got the city on record doing several things that probably shouldn't have. So I wouldn't question the step we've taken to get to where we want to go.
I'm sorry, that's not what I meant to do.
No, I
it
agree.
was impressive.
I'm agreeing with you, actually.
Yeah. Any other comments, procedural things? I mean, obviously, guys, we don't speak for Vineyard. We're a bunch of citizens that found that we were on an EPA website for a $600 million loan. And we just said, look, we know enough about government to form a citizen task force. If you guys aren't friends of Vineyard Politico Facebook group, we've kind of organized. We need more vigilant eyes. One of the things that if you saw on the screen, Sean was able to document the mayor's story changing, Christie's story changing, how they go from a grant to then a loan. That's always very helpful, especially since they've gone quiet for the past 6 months. We had Brian Matthew from the Salt Lake Tribune, who is amazing. Listen into the entire thing. He's the one that did the deep EPA GRAMA. So he's sick and we'll be going through that. And we hope to have a really good article about that. But hopefully what we're trying to do is just educate Vineyard citizens so that this is a very hairy, big, it's hard to wrap your hands around it. And it's very easy for citizens to be twisted if you have very little knowledge, right? And that's what we're here to do, is just educate the citizens about what's going on. So any other comments? We don't need to have this too long, but we just wanted to, I see Bishop Holdaway, my dad, in the meeting listening. Maybe he's got some comments. As an old Vineyard City Council member. Come on, Dad. Anyone else?
And I don't know the proper channels for the next step. I know it's something we'll look into. If anyone's willing to review documents, help out there, you know, we're always up for any sort of assistance and guidance, and a lot of you have been fantastic. So I don't know what this next step is going to require of us quite yet.
Yeah. We'll keep you posted on kind of what there needs to go. Yeah, we think the Daily Herald wanted to do a story, what Janelle, and so so is the Salt Lake Tribune, which was good. But other than that, it was a very interesting position to be put in. And the other thing is, you know, Julie's refused to take questions publicly, and so has Councilmember Welsh and all others. I've thought about it heavily of like, please come to a Zoom meeting where we could have a public conversation and we could walk you through these. When we found the financial prospectus that linked us to being an investor in these islands as a city, all three of them came over to my home, and I documented, hey, why are we an investor in this? I never talked to any of the three after that meeting. And then when it turned into a loan guarantee, they don't respond to any text messages. And I think we need to have really good decorum, not attacking personally and attacking on merit, but like, one of the things that's kind of scary is let's come into my office and let's the two of us talk by ourselves about what happened. And I know many of you, they've all said like, hey, I know this is unethical, or, you know, but did it cross the law? Like, you know, did it break the law? You know, I don't really know what the difference of that is. I mean, I do, but like, but just going on the record and saying, hey, Julie, you know, what's to say right now that another organization comes forth and wants another $5 million loan? Like, how can we ensure that this just doesn't ever happen again at this point? I mean, you could say, oh, we're having these private conversations amongst friends and we've put this in place and nobody knows about it. Like, we're a government entity. These things have to be in the light of day. And I think that's why a lot of you guys might ask, why are you doing Zoom meetings and why are you recording it? Because we need to act like a government entity, just like they do, right? Like, we want to have the same standards if we make a strong, you know, accusation. So at this
One
point,
thing I'll say there, one thing I'll say, Jake, is during mediation, I was asked by the city attorney, Sean, what will it take for you to drop this appeal? And I said, answer these 10 questions. And they said, no. To me, that says we've got issues. We cannot address those without egg on our face. But when they said, no, we won't answer those 10 questions, that's when I check out as far as mediation goes and move on. And that's why we brought it to the hearing.
Jeff, I'll let you ask your question. Do we need to raise money for the next steps? I'll kind of let you elaborate on that. Jeff, you want to speak up? Jeff Wixom.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, up to now, Sean has footed the bill, and
there's been some help.
Okay, good.
Jake as well. So yeah, yeah.
I just don't know if we need to, as a group, raise some funds to help us move into these next steps, because I definitely don't want to see this just get dropped. I mean, the fact that they admitted under oath that Vineyard City has no records, which is really hard to believe, but that I don't know how a city gets away with that, and I don't know why our city council is not even asking that simple question. Why do we not have records? And what are we doing to make sure that this doesn't happen, like you said, again?
Yeah. It doesn't cost us too much. I mean, yeah, what was it, $600, and we all chipped in, broke it into thirds. So, but it's more of our time, guys. I mean,
yeah.
Sean took off. I mean, at 36 calls while we were sitting there. I missed my company board meeting. I mean, it's just the hundreds of hours that you put in, and it's just likes on Facebook, forwards on Facebook, and asking questions of is probably the biggest thing. But The one thing that as we go to the next step, which is a big step, it's getting Peggy, who has a huge background legally in GRAMA. It's getting Ben Abbott. It's getting Conserve Utah Valley. It's getting a contingency, and quite frankly, it's everybody from around the county. Utah, they targeted Little Vineyard. They went to Provo and Provo said no. They went to the other cities and they said no, and they said no. And they were able to get us to say yes, right? Vineyard. We need to put our ask together and make sure this is a serious before we sit down with the state auditor and really make sure. The cool thing is it turns into, we don't get 20 minutes. It can be, look, we have done all of this investigation. We could all spend 8 hours and walk them through the text message and say, let's make sure you understand what's going on there. And obviously those are the two next steps to be able to get there. But you don't just want to make a phone call and say, hey, please look into this. You got to have your ducks in a row on both of those. Peggy, I'll let you comment on that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there are several alternative routes to go, and they should be pursued in parallel, not sequentially. And just stay at it, because there's this big discrepancy between what the mayor is saying and what the developer is saying. And the developer we hear today is still lobbying Congress or state legislature for a bill to let their project go forward. So it's not dead by any means. So we need to keep at it. And I think let's go back, listen to the minutes of what happened today and what folks said, and let's go to the Attorney General's office and the state auditor.
Oh, and then I got a question through text. So someone's asking me about my comments about current Vineyard City employees. We have some of the best Vineyard City employees. Without divulging names, they understand that their authority has been usurped. But I also don't think someone should lose their job or get out of the good graces of the council for coming forward. I used that information or we did, to do it as far as we could without kind of revealing some of the sources of what we did. We're able to verify, through Chris Judd, the council member, or Nate, or through Jake, to get what we needed to get done. Yes, we do have a lot of other things that we could, but they don't really play our cards right. So I think we need to make sure we don't attack any current city employees. And those that have left, there's been quite a few that you've noticed have left, obviously for not playing a role or being, how would you like all of these major projects and plans that are happening and you're not even in the meeting or in the know, and have it drop into the newspaper and go, what the crap, that's not the culture of a regular city. You're paying these professionals to go to school and their background and experience to come in and say, where does a road go? Or how does the water system work here? Or how, all the various things that would happen to a major highway coming through, and them not being involved. They feel it, we know they feel it. So any other questions? We don't want to belabor this too long, but we wanted to be as transparent in our efforts of what we tried. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I'll post this recording in all the groups, and we'll keep you posted as to where things go. I am a little bit disheartened by Council Member Welsh saying her comment there on Facebook just recently, like, we were never attacking city employees. We're attacking the city, not staff, the leadership for no records, you're right, you won, there's no records. Now what? So, all right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.